Welcome to another episode of the podcast Confession. Shpresa Loshaj, who lives in Canada and Kosovo, is a founder of a non-governmental organization named Torches, which deals with environmental protection. Shpresa is a loud advocate for the Lumbardh river protection. Her activism does not come without costs and consequences. Shpresa is today our guest, speaking to us from Canada. Thank you for being here with us, Shpresa.
Thank you for inviting me and for your interest in our environmental activism.
Thank you. So let's begin. The river Lumbardh is located within the western part of Kosovo and is the core of your environmental fight because of the hydropower plants on it. And now, can you please tell us more about this case, since we have an audience which is based in the whole region, and a lot of activists that I've talked about find exactly this problem like one of the main environmental issues in the whole region. What is the situation like in Kosovo?
In Kosovo, the situation with environment and hydropower plants, I think it's a little bit like in other Balkan countries where hydropower plants are sprouting everywhere. My activism is specifically focused in the town of Deçan in western part of Kosovo. It's a really small town, but it's beautiful with a lot of mountains and rivers. So a company, Austrian company, Kilag International, which is also a public company owned by the province of Carinthia and then indirectly owned by the government of Austria, came to Kosovo to build hydropower plants in the river in the town of Deçan, Lumbardh River, and that's where I was born and raised. So when Kilag came in 2010, they were the first company to bring hydropower plants to Kosovo after the war. And there was not enough infrastructure, either legal or any other way that people knew what's going on with hydropower plants. So they were able to really set a way, which is very unfortunate because they've set an example of very bad operation mechanisms, I would say, and it has caused a lot of damage to Kosovo in terms of rule of law, in terms of democracy, and especially in terms of environment and the river. Kilag International built 3 hydropower plants in the Lumbardh River. Deçan Canyon is a gorge, is a beautiful. The river is flowing down about 18 kilometers, and there is other branches that are coming to the river. But on top of the river, there is this flat area surrounded by mountains, and it's a pasture where people camp for about 4 or 5 months of the year with their animals, and it's just sort of a way of living for Kosovars and for people of our town because we don't have other industries developed there. And Kilag, so that pasture land is also a gravel land. And they had this river where it was almost like a last wild river probably in the Balkans and Kosovo, where you had the water going in the grass, going in the sand. It was just beautiful. So Kilag decided that we're going to take the gravel from here. Why would we go get somewhere else, I guess, gravel? So we'll get it from here, build the hydropower plants there. And they started digging. And with other pretexts, no, we're going to build something here. People didn't even know. They just saw them coming and digging in front of their houses. And they built their hydropower plants for about 3 years there. It took them about 3 years. They completely devastated and killed the river up there. They left massive, huge holes there with tens of meters down at some point. And basically, they almost said, we're done, and that's it. When in 2016, everybody saw that, okay, Kilag did what they wanted to do. Now they're not doing anything for us. They're not even fixing what they destroyed. sometimes people started talking a little bit, but being in a small town where politics rules everything, it was, and it is still very hard for people to go in opposition of some decisions that were made by people who run the town, people who run Kosovo, basically. So, and Kilag has created a very good relationship with these people. So slowly it became this silence that nobody spoke about Kilag, nobody spoke about the hydropower plant, everybody knew what's going on. And then when I was talking to people, they were just saying something like, it's very bad, but don't, just leave it alone, basically. And I didn't want to leave it alone. So in 2018, that's when I started my activism. And that's how it began, basically.
Well, as you've said, what a lot of people would have done is leave it alone. And then you have a life which has been settled and you live in Canada. However, it obviously means that much to you. I mean, what motivates a person who has her life settled in Canada to risk a lot, and we will get to that part, with fighting for a river in Kosovo?
My motivation come from a lot of different sources. Basically, it started with my motivation from my identity in Kosovo and how I had connected my childhood, my memories, my good memories of Kosovo with that place. And it was devastating to see that even that place now that wasn't destroyed in the war now is destroyed for me. And it felt like it almost tried to disconnect me from Kosovo. Now there's nothing in Kosovo that there is good, that I can just go and feel like nothing happened. And so that was my main motivation. It is a place where I grew up, basically, and I wanted to continue to have the connection and be able to use it in the future. And then the second one was the part where we went through the war, and I grew up in the time of occupation where we couldn't say anything. We knew everything was horrible, but we couldn't say anything at that time. And now we went through all this to be able to say something in defense of your country and your freedoms. Now we can't say something either. It was hard for me to accept that, because then it would mean that everything what happened to me meant nothing. I went through the war for nothing. And I wanted my experiences and the deaths of thousands of people, especially in our town. We had a horrible war. Everything was burned to the ground. And I didn't want to believe that we've done all this for nothing. And democracy matters. So I wanted to speak up.
And speaking up came with consequences. When I said risk a lot in the previous question, you're being sued by Kelkos, the company which you told us about, the company which operates the hydropower plants. They request a compensation for damages of 100,000 euros. So has this legal fight begun?
Yeah, Kilag, as it's called in Kosovo, Kelkos company, is suing me for $100,000 for apparently ruining their reputation. Because according to them, whatever I am saying is not true. That was another just unbelievable to me. First, how dare you come to my country and destroy everything and then try to silence me? That was another motivation. It's like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And so the legal fight, in a sense, has begun because they have sent a lawsuit, and they keep saying that apparently every time I speak, they're collecting more whatever I say to continue to accuse me. But they have never come out and say something, this is what we have done. When I say, for example, they destroyed the river, why don't they come out and say, no, we have not done that? But well, they'd say we haven't done it, but I mean, bring proof that they were not there when we have pictures, when we know that companies that built their hydropower plants were contracted by them to dig that gravel and do all these things, when the entire world knows that that's what's happening. And they also sued another activist from my town for 10,000 euros. But Kilag, until the point where I came, I think they managed to silence people by the local politicians, I say, the local politics of Kosovo, because everyone is dependent on politics. No one dared really to speak up, and they managed to silence them by having the relationship, I guess, or I don't know how it worked, but it worked for them because the entire town was in silence, covered in silence. When I went to Kosovo, I had sort of nothing to lose in a sense because my job didn't depend on anybody. I could say whatever I wanted without fear that my dad would be fired, for example, from his job. But I didn't really see the extent to where people who protect Kilag's interest would go to try to undermine my work, and actually even my family, and it was amazing to see how their network works. It's incredible, and I could see every day more and more, and I see now why people cannot speak up. So that's the legal fight is at the court. They haven't called us yet for a session, but we are waiting, and we have collected all the evidence, and we want to go to the court as soon as possible because we want the evidence to come out, and when we want the courts to set a precedent that because this cannot happen.
Are there any other ways they are trying to silence and intimidate you besides the legal one?
Yeah, there is other ways that they try to do that. As I said, they have their own people that protect their interests, but the people that protect Kilag's interest know what happened. Everybody in Deçan knows what Kilag has done, so nobody has face to come out and say, yes, we protect them, or yes, they're doing something good. Not one person has come in saying, yeah, they're doing a good job. But what they do, they operate at night, which is typically I'd say, sort of a intimidation criminal activities where you try to, for example, I would put posters up in around the town, and I'd go the next day at night. They have removed them, and it's not just removing the poster, but then they started to, and I had, even in my village, I had put up posters, and they started by cutting first to seeing like how would I react, I guess, and trying to deter me, and then eventually they removed them all at night. And when I woke up and saw it, I just couldn't believe it because I felt like their threats are coming in front of my door. They're trying to do this in front of my door. That's about it. And also I would know people who are doing it, unfortunately. And I would know them as being thugs in our town. I'd know them doing a dirty job for other people. And it was a sort of a scary, because I know that not only that, but other things can happen to me. And that's sort of a message they're sending to me, because I shouldn't be getting further down, because today is probably the poster, and tomorrow I never know. Things that happen at night, nobody does. If they have something good to do, they wouldn't do it at night.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the stories you have told us now, you also said that some people are, even those who are ready to fight, are dropping out of the fight because of different types of pressure which are being put on them. Now, are there activists who manage to remain in these fights, and who are they? What generations? Are they people who manage to have their freedom through working, through having a job which has nothing to do with that environment?
Yes, in our town, still Kilag has a lot of power, and still finds way to somehow affect the activists. And it's very unfortunate. It's just heartbreaking to see when they managed to get to one of them through their job, through their moms, it's just breaks your heart to know that this activist cannot speak up because this what would happen. And the connections that it has is just amazing how to see that you'd never think that connection would somehow come to protect Kilag's interest, but it does. And so in our town, it's still very tricky, but in the rest of Kosovo, activists that have supported me are still continuing to fight. The people who protect Kilag's interest manage to get to activists in many different ways, and you never know how they're going to get to you. But activists in Kosovo right now are mostly people who came out of the war, just like me, were raised in Kosovo under the Serbian occupation, and they have sort of this drive and determination, just like I do, that we are not letting this go without a fight. We deserve democracy. We earned democracy, and we earned this sort of what happened to us to protect these resources. We're not going to let them go now, because that's what we were doing, trying to stay in our land. And now by killing rivers, you're driving us out. And so that has been very well. Even me being in Canada now, there is people who are continuing to fight and take, which has been incredible and very, very touching for me to know sometimes when I wake up and I see a news that some other activists have undertaken something to do about Kilag, and without me even knowing it, it's incredible. Kosovar activists, I'd say they sort of, not just environmental activists, but for this Kilag case, a lot of different fields came together, because it's not just a case of a river, it's a case of rule of law, it's a case of democracy, it's a case of community, everything is involved. I say whatever is wrong in Kosovo is the Kilag case represents, because you have everything in there. You have corruption, you have whatever is going wrong in Kosovo. So we have different activists that got involved in different fields, and they are taking this fight to a whole new level.
Yeah, this was definitely not the result they expected with the lawsuit. Now tell me, Shpresa, please, how do you feel about everything that you are going through? You just mentioned the support you got from various people, from people coming from different sectors when the lawsuit emerged. Was there any support from at least a part of the institutions you've addressed during your fight for the Lumbardh River? Because you have addressed the institutions as well. You mapped the whole circle of those responsible. Are they showing any kind of support, protection, or are they keeping aside?
Probably during my work, the most heartbreaking part was to see Kosovar institutions. I say they were hijacked because I would say Kosovo wouldn't do that to us, but people who would use Kosovar institutions to undermine our work that we're doing to protect the river, and their job was to protect the river, and they'd go and work behind our backs. I mean, just incredible betrayal that we have experienced from previous governments, making deals with Kilag and trying to create false documents to protect Kilag, just all kinds of things, and even threatening us with lawsuit. Actually, one of them, the regulatory agency, threatened us with lawsuit if we keep asking them what's going on. And then with the new government, we really hope, because they had promised that this is going to be solved. They were really involved even before they came to government in bringing this attention to the public as well. However, unfortunately, they haven't been able to do anything either. People say that nobody will be able to do anything about Kilag because it's the Austrian government that is involved in here, and they are involved. Kilag has the full support of the Austrian embassy in Kosovo, which is everywhere. And for Kosovar institutions now, we don't know exactly why they're not able to act. We know that they have pressure from the Austrian government, but you have to know, as a government that came to protect the people's interests, you have to know how to handle that pressure. they have the Kosovar president right now. She has been, in a sense, before she was a president, she was Speaker of the Parliament. She came to see the river. She was vocal, speaking about protection of environment and the water of Kosovo. And then after she became president, she awarded me with the Presidential Medal of Courage. The environmentalist community believed that this was her way of recognizing and supporting us. We, from other institutions, I guess in a sense, we don't have the support, as I said, because it's a continuation. The same people that were before are still here. But we're hoping that we're not going to get attacked in the same way.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's common for the whole region. The institutions blocking themselves from the people they should be working for. Now I would like us to end a conversation with mentioning of another prize you've got next to the one that you've just mentioned. The Fall movement awarded you with the prize for civic courage for 2020. And now I want to ask you, like, when we look at the future of Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and other countries in the region, how do we, first of it, what is the future without civic courage, and how do we get the idea of environmental activism closer to people's minds?
Civic activism is extremely important, as in every other democracy. And I guess the Balkan countries came out of a history where it was socialism, communism, where people didn't really have a say. And we grew up under occupation where we didn't have a say anyway. So civic activism was not, I guess, in our blood, in a sense that we knew how to go out and complain in the municipality about something. Our civic activism was protest for democracy. That's what we knew how to do. Be able to give your life for freedom. Basically, our activism, I guess, was way out there, but not in a little things where you know that you have a right to go and ask what this minister, for example, is doing with this public money. This is hard to get to the people because they still don't feel like it's their job in one sense. For 20 years, for example, after the war in Kosovo, the politicians have done a horrible job in instilling to the people that they have rights. As we just talked about, that they close themselves off. To this day, I have sent numerous requests for information to the municipality of Deçan, and they haven't even replied. They haven't even acknowledged that they have gotten any of them. They don't even pretend like that we're trying. It's just this thing that leaves people, and that's why people in my town just said it is a waste. It's a waste of time, some would say, or some would say, they really don't want this to go out. So just be careful. So environmentalism, I remember asking the former prime minister one question about the river in election campaign, and he made it sound like, environmentalism that's nothing. I wanted to really make people believe that it's not even an issue. But these issues are issues that are affecting us daily. These are the issues that we're without water. That is why we are going without water. That is why we're not able to go and live there and have secured our living for the entire year. That is why, so connecting it and actually translating it directly into the results, what's happening, then it became different for the people. And I think it's important to see, not just call it like environment, because a lot of people, word environment for people in the Balkan is very new and they don't really know what probably it means. But it means the water. It's not environment in a sense that you think some air pollution in different parts of the world. It is the fact that you don't have water, and that's what we're talking about. So I think people become more involved when they know what's exactly at stake.
Thank you very much, Shpresa, for this open, honest conversation, and I'm sure for the words which will bring they make you think. They make you think, and I believe they will make think a lot of people who kind of felt it's not their problem or it's not worth fighting for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shpresa Loshaj was our guest in this episode of Podcast Confessions. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you learned a lot from the conversation, because these activists who are our guests are definitely people who have a lot of knowledge to offer. Thank you for your attention, and see you next month.